asked me to go first because, much like my dad, I'm not very shy. So I'll just start with some little memories of when I was very little, because there's a chunk of my life my dad and I were kind of apart, but although we were distance apart, our hearts were never apart. My dad used to love to tell a story about me going out, playing in the yard, and picking up what apparently I thought were butterflies. But they were bees. And I would bring them inside and I would tell my dad, "Butter bit me." And my dad would stop picking them up, but that didn't stop me. I'd go right back out and find another butter. My dad always called me Tootie, and he also called me his baby girl. And till the very end, he used both of those words with me, rarely called me by my name. I think my dad and I are very much alike. I love my dad's wit. I love his humor. I love how sharp he was. I love how smart he was. And we would just enjoy just ripping each other to pieces. We just had a great time at that. The only other person or people that I really knew that he did this with was when he was trying to teach people of, like other faiths, and he would, really dig in there with them. He loved to tell them, look at this Bible verse and look at that Bible verse and things like that. And this is kind of one of my memories. I was telling Loretta today, after my dad and I had spent some time apart, I'd come to see them again. And I think one of the reasons why we remained so close is because I wasn't a teenager in his house. Because I was kind of a tough teenager. So anyway, I came to the house and I got there really late. So my brothers Sean and James were already sleeping. Wendy had already moved out, and Wesley had already moved out. But I fell asleep on the couch, and in the morning, my brothers woke up, and they both come running in, and they jumped on the bed. And the oldest of my two younger brothers, Sean, this is his son here, Shawnee, he said to me, "Are you my sister?" Because he was very young at the time, like maybe 4, maybe, yeah. And I said, "Yeah, I am." And he goes, "You know what?" And I said, "What?" He goes, "I love you very much." And at the time, my dad was working as a pastor at a church, and so, of course, we went to the services. And some of you, I had the opportunity to hand out a little light to. And on the light, it says, and this, just to be clear, this is a gift from, my dad was one of 7 children. He was the oldest. And this is a gift from his 3 living sisters. So that would be Mary Martha, Helene, and Teresa. Chick, Hood, and Tess, by family names. and my brother Daniel, who lives in Florida, who unfortunately couldn't be here, but I was able to bring his daughter, which was the only grandchild that my dad hadn't met yet, to meet him over the spring break, and that really made him happy. So anyway, after meeting my brothers and everything, we had gone to church, and one of the songs that I remember them singing, and my brothers especially, with just great passion, was "This Little Light of Mine." And I think that that was what my dad and his teachings were always all about. He never felt the need to overwhelm anybody with his teachings. His teachings were just consistent and with love and with understanding, and he was just trying to put his little light in you so that his light lived on. And that's what it's for. So if you didn't get one, please find me later and let me get one to you, okay? Thank you.
Wendy, are you ready?
Yes.
All right.
Tissues are very necessary.
Now that my sister already got me crying, I did not prepare a speech. I was working very hard on the video that you guys saw. So I wasn't going to get up here and say anything. The video was my tribute to my dad. I can hear myself echoing, sorry. But after I got here, I thought, I'm going to go ahead and pull together something in my head. Just something that I remember him by. First of all, who all saw me almost face plant at the funeral yesterday?
Or heard you come.
I am a professional photographer. I am also a professional klutz. And every single job I have ever done, I have slipped, slid, rolled, whatever. And yesterday I woke up and I said, today you must be on your best behavior. This is your father's funeral. Do not embarrass yourself. And I almost face planted. I tripped and yeah, it was quite comical. My best memory that I have of my father, a lot of you, I don't know if you know, my father was a missionary in the Sullivan Islands, and one summer I got to be his sidekick, and that was pretty amazing. My first morning that I was there, my dad wakes me up and he says, you've got to come and see this. Walked out, he had me blindfolded, walking out, opened my eyes, and there were so many people. Oh gosh, I'm sorry for that. There had to have been everybody from that island standing there to see me. They had never seen a white girl before, so I was pretty amazing. They came from miles and miles to see the white girl. And my dad was the one that spread the word that I was there. And that was pretty amazing. I felt like the Queen of England that morning. And that was just the kind of person my dad was. But if I keep talking, I'm going to keep falling. So I'm going to allow other people to come up right now, and I just had to share that with you. Thank you.
Darn it, I cried.
I'm Tim's grandson. A lot of you knew my grandfather, Tim, and most of you know the bond me and him had. These past few years have been tough on me, and the last few weeks took a hard toll. My grandfather was just not my grandfather. To me, he was like a dad. I had lived with him from when I was 9 months old to when I was 13. My mom and dad were never really there for me. My grandma and grandpa became them. My grandpa taught me all I needed to know, all the way from my schoolwork to teaching me more about the Lord and helping me understand things I couldn't without his help. This man taught me to be the man I am today. Taught me right from wrong, and with my father in and out of my life, this man taught me most of the things a father needed to show his son. He didn't just teach me and show me things a father needed to do. He also did things a father and son would do, or even what a grandfather and a grandson would do. I don't have many big memories of my grandpa, but all the little things we did together is what made our bond so strong. These little things, all I asked for with my grandpa. And even if we didn't have the money to do some of those things, it was great just to be there and keep him company. It was great just to have a conversation with him and be by my grandfather's side. One day this time I came to visit. I had sat next to him and remembered all these little things. And as he laid in his bed, I knew all these little things had to come to an end. To be honest, I never really thought this way about my grandpa being like a dad. I know deep in my heart I had felt it but never realized it. I wish I had felt it earlier. Could have told him in person to see his reaction. I'll be able to tell him one day as I am now. But One day, when I go to heaven, I'll be able to tell him once more and see his reaction all in person. I love you, Stevie. I'll always miss you.
Before I share with you thoughts, is there anyone else that wants to come?
Those of you that don't know me, I am Tim Loretta's firstborn grandchild. I say my grandfather taught me a lot, mostly about life and God. As many of you know, I've struggled a lot with my own health the past few years. He never gave up on sending me messages concerned about how I was doing and to let me know he's always praying and that he loves me, even when he wasn't doing the best himself. When I would ask how he was feeling, he would always answer, "Couldn't be better, sweetheart." He always stayed so strong and positive, even when I knew he wasn't okay. For that, he has inspired me and has given me the outlook on life I've needed all along. That I've got to keep my head held high, that there's always going to be another mountain, that I'm always going to want to make, that I'm always going to want to move. It's always going to be an uphill battle, and sometimes I'm going to have to lose. Doesn't matter how fast we get there, or what's waiting on the other side. It's the climb. Life is all about the climb, and never losing faith along the way. My grandfather was a funny man, full of humor. I remember as a child riding to church on Sunday mornings with him, and he would be singing so loud to Ray Stevens. The more we laughed, the more he sang. I will sure miss his jokes. I will sure miss his laughter. He loved to make people smile. I'll be here all night if I try to put into words what this man means to me and our family. My favorite memories growing up was all the wonderful places he took me. He loved to show me off. And snuggling up with him in his recliner. Mind you, I was much smaller. And flying to see my grandparents in the summer when we moved away, all by myself as a little girl. I felt so big till I got to the airport. It was huge with so many people. How will I ever find Grandpa here? Then at a distance, in no time, I see a man with a huge smile, waving his hands around, jumping up and down. Yep, it was Grandpa. I remember being so excited, I just dropped my bag and ran into his arms. Those were some great times. I know I will never be alone, because my hero lives in heaven and in my heart forever. I love you, Grandpa.
Anyone else before I share their written thoughts? I want to share a prepared letter from Sean about, about his dad. My dad is a lucky man today. He is with God. While we still struggle to make a life worth living, my father is living the dream. Revelation 21 tells us of all things being made new, that every tear will be wiped away, no more death or sorrow or crying, there is no more pain. God told John to write these things down because the words are faithful and true. Can you imagine what it must be like to be able to cash in on God's promises? I can't. I can't fathom the depth of what God has blessed my father with. The world lost a great man on June 12th of this year. I lost a great dad. God gained a general in his army. My dad was the best man that he could be to us, to friends, to God. I grew up in a home where my father treated my mother with love and respect. I learned love and respect from him in a way that tattooed my memory with it. He raised the kids that weren't his with the same love and affection that he showed to my younger brother and I. He supported my interest and hobbies and taught me that failure is only a stepping stone to achievement. He never bent God's law for us and taught us the importance of following what God's Word tells us to do. The way he understood the Bible made a lasting impact on the way I have learned to apply it to my life. He never settled for the feel-good, watered-down message that is being taught in our society today. He followed God's commands to diligently seek his face. My dad found that child and taught her her own life, and she passed away when Tim was 8 months old. Tim was full of life. When I first met him, he told me all the things he had done in life. I thought he was just making up stuff. No one could have done all that in the years he had lived at that time. And being married to him, I witnessed his zeal for life and knew that he did do all of that. He always wanted to try new things just so he could say that he did. He poured just as much energy into living and learning about God as he had not knowing God. What an example he was to those that he touched. I have been overwhelmed and deeply touched by the responses of those posts, so I decided to share some of the words of love from those who were touched by him. When he first learned that he had cancer, I reached out through Facebook to all of his friends and family. So here are some of the thoughts that came from Facebook. When we decided not to do chemo, we were surrounded in prayer and love, and some of your comments were as followed. I have great memories of him also as my principal in school. Prayers are with you all. Tim was a principal. I was talking about Tim to my husband last night, telling him about what a neat guy he was as my childhood principal, about the fun stories he would tell us kids. Love you guys and praying for you all the time. We've been extremely blessed having Tim as our Sunday school teacher. Best I ever had. Bless you both. We love Brother Sullivan, praying for comfort for you both. You're a wonderful example of a man of God and his will. I love you guys, and God is not done with you yet. So sorry. I wish I could take it all away. Tim is an amazing man. We've learned so much from his wisdom. You both have and do mean so much to us. Love you, brother. Praying for God's will in your life. Thanks for being there for Joyce and I when it meant so very much. Precious memories. We are praying for y'all and think of you very often. Must be a Southerner. We pray for y'all and think of you very often. Brian and I are forever grateful for Tim's teachings. What a blessing you both are in our lives. Remembering you both in our prayers, our church here at Oakhurst had special prayer for him yesterday during our morning services. Our God is so great, so strong, and so mighty, there's nothing our God cannot do. Sounds like a song that I know. Loretta, few men have touched others as significantly as did Tim. He left behind an incredible example for us to follow. It was an honor to have served with him. Our thoughts and prayers are with you and your family. Sounds like a military connection. There were so many more, but for now we know that we were all blessed to have known him. Tim will be remembered by his family and all who knew him as a godly man. He was a loving husband, father, grandpa, great-grandpa, and friend. Why don't we sing that song that Anna Marie spoke of?
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Sing that again, this little light. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
You were invited to receive one of these, and if you didn't get to, you'll get to after the service. We have about 10 minutes that we can permit you to share a memory that you have about Tim. If you're in the audience and you would like to do that, we would invite you to come and do that. If you don't want to come all the way up to the top of the stairs here, there's a mic at the end of that row, and there will be right at the end of that row, and you can just pick that up on your way. And I would indicate that maybe we'd have time for 4 or 5 of you to take about 2 minutes each. And if you have a memory or something you want to share about Tim, would you do that right now?
First, I want to say thank you for coming to remember Tim and his support of the family. Tim and I were close. I consider Tim to be the closest friend I had for more than 40 years. We met when I went to Bible school in 1972 in Bellflower. He was upperclassman. In fact, as I thought, and I just learned on Facebook, Loretta, that he started in 1971. I thought he was in 4th year already.
I could be wrong.
So I was wrong. But anyway, I didn't think he liked me because he would see me in the hallways or in chapel and he'd say, "There's that troublemaker." Look at him like, what's wrong with me, you know? I only asked him about that about 3 years ago. And he said, "Well, I liked you, it's just that you were so serious all the time, so straight-laced, you know, I'm trying to liven you up a little bit." And that was Tim. Tim was talk about a prayer warrior. Tim was a prayer warrior. He prayed for dozens of people every day. He prayed for my sister when she had cancer. She fought cancer for a year or 2. Thankfully recovered. He prayed for my mom and dad while they were dying in the convalescent hospital. And I know that he did that every day, not only because he told me that he did, and I knew I could trust him, but because whenever we would talk on the phone, he would ask me how they were. If you request prayer for someone and they say, "I'm praying for you," and they never ask about that prayer request, well, I'm not going to say they're not praying for you, but I knew Tim was praying for my request because he always wanted to know. I knew, in other words, my sister and my parents were on his heart, his mind. He did that every day. He even prayed for people that he never met. I don't know if any of you know about CARM, Christian Apologetics Research Ministry. It's a site where online where we go and we discuss theology from anyone from atheist to Baptist. And Tim introduced me to that, and he spent a lot of time on the Mormon board and the Roman Catholic board. And there was a woman on the Roman Catholic board who, when she went there, Tim began witnessing to her and praying for her. And I want to read something that she said. When I learned just how close he was to death a week or so ago, I posted on Carm about this because I knew a lot of people would want to know where Brother Saul had gone. And a lot of people made comments about him and the influence that he had had in their lives and the great things he would say online on the different boards that he would go to witness to. And a woman who calls herself Bold Irish Lass said this: "Thank you for the update on Brother Saul. Our dear brother and his wife prayed for me when I first came to Carm and for my lost family members. He was always encouraging me and reaching out to me. I had been praying for him because I knew he had cancer, and I have missed him lately. Such a wonderful man and a tremendous blessing to me. I will be praying for him and his family." Never met this woman, never saw this woman, she never met him. And yet she came there, he could tell that she was burdened. He talked to her online and began praying for her in Loretta too. And now when I read the post that she puts on the site, she's a strong, vibrant witness for Jesus. So Tim prayed for people and encouraged people. Tim was a friend to me that was closer than a brother. A few years back, I lost my faith. I was ready just to throw everything in. But he continued to believe in me, continued to mentor me, continued to pray for me. When I get to heaven, and after I've met Jesus, and after I've been reunited with my own family, the first person that I'll ask for is Tim.
Bigger than I am. Loretta, I told you the other day that Tim inspired me. And he did. He was always with, much like the granddaughters, the kind word, the sweet spirit. Whether it was his walker or his cane, or his, get out of the way. He was a sweet person, great to be around. We're all going to miss him. I hope you won't think I'm impertinent, but I couldn't help but think about the story that your granddaughter told about the airport scene. I just want to share with you all, picture that. Tim is arriving at heaven, and he's scared. It's a big place, and he's looking around, and he's going, how am I going to find Jesus? And all of a sudden he looks up, and there's Jesus waving his arms, waving both arms, jumping up and down. And Tim and him get together. Jesus throws his arms around him and says, welcome home. Tell you the truth, they're looking at us now going, why are you sad? He's in the loving arms of Jesus. Neat story. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Tim was a great guy to be around. We're all going to miss him. planned it that way for that story to proceed thus far. We did, the Lord did. Barely 1 week ago, I stood beside a bed where Tim Sullivan lay as his earthly life appeared to be slipping away. As I stood there, I couldn't help but think, what is it like to die? Have you ever wondered about that? Have you ever stood at the side of someone who seemed to know that you were there but couldn't speak to you? Have you ever asked, what will it be like when I die? Well, maybe not, but services like this one today often bring death questions to the forefront of our minds. Questions that lead many of us to the words of God to seek out our answers. What does the Bible have to say about death? Well, the first time it's mentioned is back in the book of Genesis, the very first book of the Bible, the book of beginnings. God had placed Adam and Eve in the garden, and He had given them freedom to eat from what grew there in the garden, except for one thing that was growing in the middle of the garden. God said, and this is found in Genesis chapter 2, verses 16 and 17, from any tree of the garden you may eat freely, but from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat from it you will surely die. One day Eve took the fruit from that tree and ate from it. And then she gave it to her husband Adam, and he also ate from it. And what they did that day introduced death into their existence, and the consequences of that action were both immediate and future. As we begin to study what happened in the garden, we discover much about death. Death involves separation from the body, from one another, and from the most important relationship that we can have, and that's the one that we can have with God. On the day that Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit, their bodies began to change. Age became a factor in their existence, and one day their bodies were just completely worn out. Their relationship with one another also changed. They were no longer comfortable in each other's presence. Their innocence was gone. Quarrels would soon follow, and the first selfish thoughts they had ever known filled their minds. And then when God came to walk with them, they hid from His presence. They were ashamed of their behavior, and they felt guilt over their sin. What they had once known with God was lost. Romans chapter 5 verse 12 says, therefore, just as through one man sin entered the world, and death through sin, so death spread to all men because all sinned. Everyone in this room will taste death because everyone in this room has sinned. Our actions have separated us from one another and from God who made us, and one day we too will experience separation from our body. Romans chapter 6 verse 23 says, the wages of sin is death, but the free gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus. Now, God did not abandon Adam and Eve when they sinned, and He didn't abandon us when we sinned. In fact, it became an opportunity for God to demonstrate His great and amazing love, and that love was manifest in the person of Jesus Christ, who came to live and die and rise again from the